You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. This is Making Tracks. Here are your hosts, Mark Newbold and Mark Mulcaster.
That's not true. That's impossible.
This is episode 46 of Making Tracks, brought to you by the fine folk over at Fantha Tracks. I'm Mark Mulcaster, I'm one of your hosts, and with me today is the first member of the Fantha Tracks to actually join a Star Wars book club, Mr. Mark Newbold.
Hello, Mark.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm well read now, apparently. Yeah, it's nice to be part of a book club. It's always good to be part of a club.
Yes, well, I am a member of a couple of clubs.
You are.
Or legions. You know, this isn't just any book club, this is the Star Wars book club, as seen on the Star Wars YouTube channel. So, how did that all come about?
Well, they asked me, which was nice. And it was a really good book as well. Tom Engelberger wrote it, and it's a kid's book. But I chomped through it. I thought it was fantastic, really good fun. And it nailed a lot of the characters as well. Yeah, it was really enjoyable. It was fun to do it. And like anything, like this, you know, you record so much and then you do an edit and so much of it comes out. And it was the same with that. I think we recorded for like an hour. But it was a fun hour, and Eunice was on good form, as you could see, and Kristen and Kelly had a good laugh as well. So yeah, we had a fun time. I enjoyed it. It was good. I'd like to do it again.
Yeah, hopefully they get you back on, or maybe, hint, hint, me. I mean, I watched it. It's on the Star Wars YouTube channel, so you can kind of catch that now.
You can listen to my pathetic non-Wookiee roar.
Wow, yeah. So, I mean, but then Eunice is going to show anybody up, really, isn't he? So
he's very good. But yeah, he can do a proper Wookiee roar. And I mean, I can. I said, record with me at 8 in the morning, and I wake up sounding like a Wookiee. As the day goes on, I go from baritone, I end up at blooming soprano by midnight. That's why I do karaoke in the evenings. It wasn't the right time for me to be doing a Wookiee roar. It just came out like a gurgle. Not good. Not good.
So was that a late night recording then?
I think it was about 8 o'clock at night, yeah, so it wasn't that late, but I wasn't ready. You've got to warm up for a Wookiee roar, you know, you can't just walk into it, you know, it's, you know how it is.
Exactly.
You've got to find your fur.
Indeed you do, yeah. So, you know, from Wookiee to Jawa. That's how it basically is, isn't it?
Yeah,
so,
that's pretty much my daily routine.
Let's be honest, you know, if a man gets paid to play Chewbacca, so he should be able to do a good rookie roar, I reckon.
Yeah, he did a Wookiee roar, I did a rookie roar. That's the difference.
Yeah, indeed. There you go.
Hi, this is Dave Chapman, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
So there's been a nice rumour floating around this week on the internet about a certain Mr. Hayden Christensen returning to reprise some form of a role in the new Kenobi series. Have you had a chance to pick that one up?
Yeah. One, I'm staggered that there's rumours on the internet. I mean, that blows me away for a start. But it would be fascinating if he did. I mean, obviously, he came back, we'll put a piece on Fantha about it. He came back for Celebration last year, which sort of put him back in our line of sight in a good way. A lot of goodwill towards the prequels at the moment. And voiced Anakin very briefly in the final Be With Me sequence of Rise of Skywalker. So again, he's credited again as Anakin in a Star Wars project. So that definitely puts him back in the wheelhouse. And then this rumour, and like I say, at the moment, it really is just a rumour. It's at the stage of the classic "my sources tell me" post on various sites. But nevertheless, it's such a great thought and so plausible. You know, we can't not talk about it. If he came back as Anakin or Vader, you know, the potential is endless.
Actually, I mean, that's the thing, because my mind straight away went to, oh, okay, so you could kind of almost have episodes of Kenobi which flash back to Clone Wars era, Anakin and Obi-Wan. But I suppose, actually, yeah, there's no reason why he couldn't play Vader. It would seem like a bit of an overkill to kind of cast him and probably pay the price that he probably is going to command just to have him in the suit. You'd kind of think that they would probably want at least one episode of Hayden as Anakin, which would be fantastic, because that would be live action Clone Wars, which would be great.
Well, I suppose if you think about it, we've in the most brief way, because obviously Attack of the Clones, we had the start of the Clone Wars. Revenge of the Sith with the Battle of Coruscant, and basically the end of the Clone Wars, with the whole Order 66 thing. So we've seen elements of it. The Mandalorian, the flashback sequences with young Jin and the super battle droids, they're sort of Clone Wars live action era things. So we've sort of had little vignettes of live action Clone Wars, but nothing substantial. But with this, like you say, you want a big 6'8" bruiser like Prowse was to be in that Vader suit. And please, I hope we do get to see Vader in like you did in Rogue One, just in a sort of a cameo, extended cameo. The sequence with Krennic on Mustafar, and then the sequence at the end on the Tantive 4 and stuff, or Tantive V as we're supposed to say. But if you've got Hayden in the suit, I think what you'll see of Hayden, if you see him as Vader, this is all hypothesis, is, with the helmet, in the end of Sith, the stuff they never show on the telly anymore because it's too grim, because Revenge of the Sith was quite a full-on film, all scarred up, before they put the helmet on. And of course, that was literally straight out the lava. Now it'll look more sort of pasty white like in Empire. The scars have started to heal over, and this is quite a few years after Revenge of the Sith. So to see Hayden's face under that makeup potentially in his meditation chamber, he's got his things going on, and Obi-Wan's got his things going on. But you just said it, and it's true. You look at Hayden now, he don't look that different to how he did when he made Revenge of the Sith. No. And Ewan, lucky bugger, has aged really well. He don't look that up. I mean, they aged him up in Revenge of the Sith anyway, so he's the right age now for the role. But they could easily go back, and with technology now, to easily knock 5 years off an actor now, it would, the text there that they could quite comfortably do it. I think you're right. I think they could do quite elongated flashback sequences to the Clone Wars. Hell, they could do a whole episode set. Yeah. You imagine if they did a Clone Wars episode that completely backed up something that was happening in the present time of Obi-Wan in the desert on Tatooine, and it all links back to something that happened in the Clone Wars, and they could do an episode that tallied up with that. And then the sky's the limit. Then you're getting Frank Oz back as Yoda, you're getting Samuel L. Jackson back as Mace, you're getting the gang back together to redo those roles, and it would look just like it did back in the day.
That would be awesome. And like you say, it would be great if you just have one of those episodes where it's the whole thing doesn't allude to it being a flashback, you're just in. It's just straight into Clone Wars action, Hayden and Ewan doing that kind of back and forth and getting the banter up. That would be really cool, I think. Stuff that we kind of had hints of in Attack of the Clones, and then, you had a little bit of a hint of that in Revenge of the Sith, but still there wasn't a huge amount of banter moments, really, and the kind of stuff that you do actually get a lot more in the Clone Wars animated show.
Yeah.
So it would be lovely to see kind of those kind of nice character bonding moments in live action.
If this does pan out, and it does see Hayden come back in, even if it's a cameo role, or a lot of the reports, a lot of these theories are saying that he's back in a full role, and I hope he is, because I think it'd be brilliant to have him back and have him involved. And also, if you're going to do flashback stuff, then all of a sudden you're thinking, well, would Natalie Portman come back and do something? You really do start to open up the doors to further stuff. And like I say, with the de-aging technology we've got now, you really could make them look like they did then quite comfortably. And if it isn't sort of 6 episodes of doing it, it is 1 episode with, a few minutes of footage like that. It feels like it's an achievable thing. But yeah, to have him involved again would be really cool. And also for Ewan as well, he's coming back, and he's he's the lead. It's a bit like Patrick Stewart coming back as Jean-Luc. Picard's the lead character. It's a new crew around him. Presumably, Ewan's going to have new characters surrounding Ben. Well, it'll be Ben by this point, won't he? Again, Ben Kenobi rather than Obi-Wan Kenobi, because he's in hiding. So it'll be crazy old Ben. But to have some of these actors that he worked with before come back. And also, they get to experience the stagecraft technology and all that sort of stuff, because clearly Ewan seems to be quite excited by that. That seemed to sort of light him up a little bit, All these other actors get to see this and do that as well. Seems like a peripheral thing, but it's, it's all part of the whole. Because it's another situation where you've got a series that's like Cassian Andor series. They do a Cassian Andor series, and people we've talked about this before, people go, oh, who wants to see a series about Cassian Andor? And it's like, it's not a series about Cassian Andor. He's the focal character. It's a series about the Star Wars galaxy at that point of time.
Exactly.
But we're following it through that particular Rebel Alliance officer who's going off and doing all these cool missions and quite nasty missions. Obviously, we saw that at the start of Rogue One. He's a brutal kind of guy, really, to ends justifying the means sort of thing. But he's only the focal point. It doesn't mean that's all you're going to see. And even with the Obi-Wan, series, you're thinking, well, obviously Ben's the centre of it, but by the same token, you've got to be able to see. You could see McDiarmid back at the Emperor. You know, you're going to see the Emperor. You're going to see Vader. You're going to see the galaxy as it is at that point of time. 7 years before, I can't remember where they're setting it. I think it's 13 years after Sith. So you're about 7 years before, 6 years before Star Wars. So you're in that sort of area of time. You're going to see a lot more than just Ben sitting in his hut twiddling his thumbs.
You'd hope so. I mean, he's got to get blue milk from somewhere.
Yeah, but now we're going to find out where the blue milk comes from.
Oh yeah, no. So maybe that's it. Maybe opening scene of the first chapter of Kenobi is Ben Kenobi hunched over on a stool milking a bantha.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, and just takes a swig, licks his lips, and smirks at the camera. Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hi, this is Neil Scanman. You're listening to Panther Tracks.
So, this episode, we have got another listener's question. It's coming once again from Alan Wills, who last week, you all remember, got a shout-out for giving us a positive review on iTunes. So, if you give us a shout-out on iTunes, you get a shout-out on the show. So, please remember that. 5-star, please. And Alan's question is, do you seriously believe that Lucasfilm will release a new Star Wars film in the foreseeable future? My opinion is that they will concentrate their efforts on various live-action and animated TV series for Disney Plus for the next few years. I don't think going to the cinema will be an attractive concept for most people for a while, with COVID-19 avoidance likely to be part of our lives for at least the next year or so. That's a good question, really, and we have skirted on similar topics in the past on the show. What do you think? Do you think, I mean, we're sort of halfway through 2020, film studios are just sort of starting to ramp up again. We know it takes a good 3 years to turn a Star Wars film around, and if they do a new one that's not set in the sequel trilogy or original trilogy era, they've got to start from scratch, essentially. So, do you think that the December 2022 date for a Star Wars big screen release is still potentially achievable or viable, or do you think we need a bit of a break? What do you think?
I guess it kind of comes down to how far they were with whatever they were doing before they stopped doing it.
That's a good point.
Because that's the thing, you can make films fairly quickly if you have to, but you don't tend to make a VFX, special effects, CGI orientated film very quickly. Those things take time. Even if they can kind of say, right, we're starting principal photography, it would be a big ask. I mean, maybe 2023? I do feel that for the time being, and possibly not because of COVID at all, because actually when it comes down to it, you know, the film crews and all that still need to work together, and the productions are now figuring out how they can do productions around that COVID kind of avoidance, as Alan says. I think the focus from Disney, and possibly maybe there may be a little bit of cajoling by Disney to the other studios to produce content for the Disney Plus streaming app. You know, Bob Iger kind of says they're still going to be making movies. That's not going away. But at the same time, he wants a lot of content to be channeled through the Disney Plus app. So you would think that possibly, for argument's sake, let's take Kenobi. They were discussing doing Kenobi as a film. Solo didn't have the greatest returns. Let's make this into a series and we can put it on the Disney Plus app. Because everybody at the moment is kind of thinking, well, the focus was on The Mandalorian. But that's only one series. And it only takes 8 weeks out of, you know, a year of 52 weeks to watch it. Then what do you have? Disney want to keep, they don't want people to just kind of start dropping off their subscriptions. They want it to be renewed. They want new content all the time. So I'd imagine Lucasfilm and Marvel have been kind of like pushed a little bit in the direction of doing content for Disney Plus.
I don't disagree with that. I think, you know, they've put so much effort into it, and all things being equal, I'm sure Bob Iger would have walked away by now with Disney Plus being his crowning achievement that secures the future of Disney television and film for a long time, because, you know, you get your big screen set. I mean, I think Peter Jackson said it years ago when they released the extended editions of Lord of the Rings, when he said, well, the film's coming out at the cinema, it almost feels like the trailer for these full releases. And he was talking specifically about these extended editions that came out, you know, sort of 3 or 4 years after the film did. But it was a really interesting point that he made, in that, a film comes out at the cinema and that's the box office number that you take note of. So, you know, Avengers Endgame comes out, it takes $2.8 billion worldwide, biggest movie ever, you know, and we all went and saw it, you know, 2 or 3 times or however many times we saw it. And then it comes out on Blu-ray and DVD, and then it hits Disney Plus, and now probably for forever, you'll stick it on Disney Plus and watch it there. and they'll get their numbers. We were talking before the show started when you said that Netflix have started giving out their numbers for films and such, and you said Extraction had what was it, 99 million views or something crazy like that?
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, now that's to kind of, I suppose, clarify that a little bit. That's 99 million views. At least say somebody's clicked to watch it. It doesn't necessarily say how many people got all the way through Extraction.
Good point. Yeah. It's not Citizen Kane, is it? To be fair, but
no.
But the point being, like, and you made a great point when we were talking earlier, is like, if you took those 99 million people, and let's say they did watch all of it, or 99 million clicks. So 99 million clicks could be dad clicking, or mom clicking, or one of the kids clicking to watch it, and 4 people sit down to view that film, let's say, if they're of appropriate age, because it's not exactly Sylvanian families, is it, Extraction? But
Indeed, yeah.
But if you were going to the cinema to see it, that's mum and dad paying for 4 people to go to the cinema, plus all the popcorn, which is where the cinemas make their real profit. So let's call those 99 million clicks $10 a click. That's $1 billion film. That's an insanely successful movie. So I suppose you look at Disney Plus and think, well, if you're feeding The Mandalorian, and we've just had season 7 of The Clone Wars, and we had Disney Gallery The Mandalorian, which was fantastic, and now we've got The Bad Batch coming next year, which again is, feeds into what we were talking about earlier about Anakin and Obi-Wan in that sort of time period and such. So, you've got all these potential projects, especially Star Wars ones, where if you sat there with a level playing field and a blank piece of paper and a pencil and said, right, give me 20 ideas for a TV show based in the Star Wars galaxy, you could do it quite easily, I think. If you had half an hour to just write down 20 ideas for a Star Wars TV show, you could do it comfortably. And not just weird, random, off-the-cuff, silly stuff. Oh, Salacious Crumb and Jabba the Hutt go on a road trip to Coruscant, and let's do a 6-part TV series about that when they're both doing Michael Caine impressions or something. You could actually come up with something quite substantial of a list of 20 shows. And Star Wars is one of those shows. So I'm sure the smart people at Disney and the money people, because it's all about money, it's a business, are sitting there going, well, what do we do? It was the law of diminishing returns at the box office post Force Awakens. Force Awakens does 2.2 billion. Like at the time, I think it was like the 3rd most successful film ever. It's a huge hit. And then Rogue One comes out and takes half of that, but that was expected because it was a different type of film. And then Last Jedi comes out and takes 1.3 billion, which was good numbers, but $1 billion less than the Force Awakens. Near as damn it, that's a big drop off. And then Solo comes out and does lousy money for 450 million worldwide. Comfortably should have took Ragnarok numbers, should have took double that, but I don't think it was ever going to be $1 billion film, but I think it should have took, in my head, it was 750, 800 million comfortably.
Yeah, it was up the top end of like just under $1 billion. I think it was worth it.
And then Rise of Skywalker comes out and just about scrapes $1 billion, just took what Rogue One did. So and they're all quality films, but the numbers are dropping. So there's obviously a disconnect. There's a problem. Something's not connecting with Star Wars on the big screen. So for them to step away for a few years and go, we really need to rethink this. And the thing about Star Wars, I think as well, is it's a bit like, and we've said this before, it's a bit like the old Disney video releases they used to do back in the day, the yellow spine releases, when they'd release Dumbo, and you'd be able to get Dumbo for 6 months, and then Disney would very publicly go, right, we're taking Dumbo and we're putting him back in the vault and we're not bringing him out again for 7 years. And so if you wanted Dumbo, you needed to get him now, because there was no other way of getting that film. It wasn't being shown on telly, it wasn't being shown on the cinemas, you can only get it on video. Once they'd sold out, it was gone. So there was that get it while you can factor, and Star Wars always had that, well, the circus is coming to town, but after the end of Revenge of the Sith, we don't know when we're going to be back. And 10 years later, Force Awakens turns up, and it's the biggest thing ever. It's like, this is the most anticipated film ever. But then all of a sudden you're getting a film every year, and it's like, it's not so special when it's coming every year. Or in Solo's instance, every 5 months. So many people, when I talked about Solo, were like, I've just seen that's the one with when Luke died. No, this is about young Han Solo. I've not heard about that. I'm going to see Deadpool 2. It just got lost in the mix. So they need to give it that special factor. So I think you're right. Yeah, I think TV feels where it needs to be.
One of the biggest issues, they didn't push Solo anywhere near as much. And the cycle at the time was you released a film in December, you had the home video release, as it were, in April. Then you have May the 4th. Then you have nothing until Force Friday, which is September, October, which is the start of like the run-up to the next film. Yeah. But then suddenly you're like, okay, so we've got the film, and it was in the cinema. I saw it in February, and then you had the release of The Last Jedi in April, And then it was like literally 2 or 3 weeks later, we were seeing Solo, which as a Star Wars fan and a fan of cinema, great, fantastic, that's awesome. But you could definitely get the sense that, barring the really hardcore Star Wars fans who weren't disenfranchised or who weren't kind of torn apart by the discourse and discussion around The Last Jedi, a lot of people were just like, yeah, I don't think I need to see another Star Wars film just now. Yeah. I want to go see Deadpool 2, and there are other franchises. And that's the thing. Star Wars being so popular was because it was the only thing of its type back in 77 and 1883. People had tried to kind of do something similar, but it had always failed because it just felt so derivative. But now, for every single Star Wars film, there's at least 10 different other franchises who are all vying for the same kind of market.
Yeah, and the same release slots, which is why Star Wars probably ended up in December as opposed to May, where it used to be.
I saw Star Wars a lot of the times around Christmas because it was on ITV a lot.
Yeah.
So Star Wars has always had that slight feeling of Christmas associated with it. And so actually, like December kind of festive period, to me, it's kind of now almost like Star Wars season because we've had the last 4 or 5 years of films being released around that time. You look at the release schedule and you're meant to have like an Avatar film every 2 years or something for like the next, 65 billion years or something. I think a lot will depend greatly, and this is coming back to Alan's other part of the question, I think it will depend greatly upon what does happen with cinema attendance over the next year or so. I think there could be films that are either in production now or are just about to start production, and I could see film studio execs saying, maybe we should just hold off and wait 6 months and see where things go and develop, because I think everybody feels like we've got to get through this whole year and we've got to get to like 2021 without there really being a second spike, at least in the UK. I spoke last week that the cinemas are open and I went to see The Empire Strikes Back, but I didn't go to see The Empire Strikes Back that was being produced and released for the first time. I'm seeing Empire Strikes Back that's been released on its 40th anniversary, and cinemas have kind of taken the savvy approach of because of the fact the releases have been delayed and pushed back, therefore, well, we need to get bums in seats somehow and start to get the confidence back that actually you're not going to end up necessarily catching COVID-19 by going to the cinema. They've started to re-release some of these popular films that actually you can get a sensible amount of people to go and see, because I think possibly what could be dangerous, or not necessarily dangerous, but a risk, is if a big tentpole film does get released, like, for instance, everybody's waiting for like Tenet by Chris Nolan. Yeah. If then suddenly it's all sold out everywhere, so you're starting to kind of maybe find out the COVID numbers are going up again, and you start doing a correlation, well, actually, is it the cinema that's maybe having this kind of effect? That's going to be even worse, because it means that we kind of have to either close the cinemas, or they're going to have to really kind of start to restrict the number of people in the viewings, which means if you restrict the number of people in the viewings, the box office numbers go down. Yeah, but also I think there's an element of, we had Hal Hickel on recently talking about ILM and The Mandalorian and his career, and one of the questions I asked was, well, is this the project, The Mandalorian, is this the project where the demarcation line between cinema and television kind of really disappears? Because if you're an ILMer like him, who's worked on monster projects for years and years, decades now, like he has, and then all of a sudden Kathleen Kennedy says, I want you to work on a TV show. Yeah, back not that long ago, that would have felt like a step down. Oh, blimey, a TV, really? Not to disrespect TV at all, or the work that's done on them. You knew when you were seeing a big screen movie on the small screen compared to a VFX project made for the small screen, that you couldn't take Galactica and put it on the big screen. It wouldn't have worked. Visually, it wouldn't have worked. But now you know that they could screen The Mandalorian at the cinema and you would go and watch it. It would look just as good as any other Star Wars project. So that's the point there. No, it's a good point, because it's not just a VFX. It's just everything. Yeah. It's for cinema cameras, and it's the way it's acted. It's the way it's scored. Exactly. Mandalorian they are like little mini movies. Whereas you watch, I know you've been rolling through old Next Gen episodes, and they film it, they score it to the 5-act structure. Well, the advert's coming up now. That's where the adverts would have been. The intro, the first act, the first ad break, the second act, and all that sort of stuff. You can see it on the screen. I mean, you'd go and watch it on the big screen, because if you're a Trek fan, why wouldn't you? But they make The Mandalorian like a movie, which again, it's the Netflix era.
the streaming era, no two episodes are even the same length anymore. You know, you watch a TV show, one episode's half an hour, next episode's 45 minutes. It's like, I'll make it as long as it needs to be. It doesn't matter. It's a streamer. It doesn't matter. So with this situation now, with Lucasfilm, internally, it's probably, okay, the budgets are different. They're probably made by different parts of the team and parts of the department, but there's going to be a massive overlap of, well, it's the same ILM guys working on it. It's the same, you know, crew guys working on it. You know, if we're going to have Brian Herring do BB-8 on the big screen, if we do a small screen sequel trilogy era TV series, let's get Brian back to do BB-8 and Dave Chapman and those guys and Matt Denton and all those guys to do it. You know, why wouldn't we? We want that quality and continuity, so that's the sort of thing that you would do. But in this circumstance, I think you're absolutely right. I think there must be films out there. Well, it's just happened with Tom Hanks' film Greyhound, which I think has gone to Apple, and he's kind of heartbroken because he was like, this film needed to be seen on the big screen. In the current circumstance where you've got big screen movies like Artemis Fowl, let's say, I think that was, I could be wrong, but I think that was originally due to come out at the cinema, and it ended up going on Disney Plus. That's a different circumstance. They've made that to be a big screen movie, and life has happened the way it has. That's meant it's ended up being shown on the small screen. So now the lines are blurred so much. Do you need the Golden Globes and the Oscars? Do you know what I'm getting at? It's all becoming one media, and it's just, where do you watch it? You're going to watch it on your telly? You're going to watch it on your phone? You're going to watch it on your wristwatch? You're going to take a tablet and dream it? You know, what's the format of delivery? You know, so it's an interesting question. I think TV short term, but I think we need another 3 or 4 years before big screen Star Wars comes back. I think we need the hunger again.
I think so. Yeah, definitely need the hunger. I think, and this may actually be a risk with having so much Star Wars content on Disney Plus. Is that actually we're never, you know, we're always going to be slightly satiated. Mm-hmm. For a new Star Wars film to be released at the cinema, it has to be something pretty new and special. Yeah. I think. Yeah. And if it takes them 10 years to come up with that, whatever it is, be it Proto-Jedi and kind of like the Dawn of the Jedi era, or Rey's offspring or grandkids from, you know, 200 years after the events of Rise of the Skywalker, it doesn't matter. Or even if it's actually a film set 2 weeks after the Boon to Eve pod race, it doesn't really matter as long as it's a story that I think is going to resonate with people and it's going to be compelling enough to want and to get people to want to see it. You've got to kind of make something that people are going to want to watch, and especially now for the cinema, we started to see with all these different kind of showcase technologies like 4DX and even Dolby Vision, that you're starting, the premium price of like premium cinema is getting really expensive. To take a family of 4 to, like, you know, Cineworld to watch something in 4DX, which is great fun, but actually you take a compromise in the visual quality because the 3D glasses dim the picture down. It's 65 quid for the ticket for the cinema. Then obviously everybody wants popcorn and drinks and stuff, so that's an extra 40 quid on top of that. So you've done a ton already. It's kind of, I mean, I can remember a conversation between Lucas and Spielberg, and Lucas kind of said that he sees it in the future that cinema will become like the next opera and theatre. So it's going to cost more to go and see it, and less people will go and see it, but the price of the tickets will go up. So what do you do, really?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's true that it will become well, it always is, but it was more of a mass market sort of way of rolling films out, and everything's changing, isn't it? You know, the way that music is rolled out now. You know, back in, well, I'm older than you, but, you know, back in the day for me, it was like get a single on 7-inch, and then it was get a single on cassette single, and then it was CD single, and now it's streaming. You know, so the delivery changes. But also, I think with Star Wars specifically, you've kind of gone from a fan base that was very patient, you know, that would wait years for more Star Wars and keep things bobbling along. And it's always been a busy fandom, whatever era you go back to it. But even in the dark times, it was a busy fandom. There was stuff going on. To now, you've kind of created a fan base that's hungry for content, continually hungry for content. Rise of Skywalker only came out, 7 months ago? Completely in the rearview mirror now. And yet here we are talking about Empire Strikes Back 40 years later. So you've kind of created a scenario where we've got to have new stuff all the time. And the only way that Disney can realistically keep delivering new stuff all the time is 2 ways. 1, to do animated stuff, and 2, to do live action stuff on Disney Plus. So it just feels like, to feed the beast, they've created this keep making stuff, and the worry is the quality drops. They've got to keep that quality level high. They've got the most nitpicky fan base ever, and that's not a criticism, that's just how it is. It is the most nitpicky.
Just the nature of fandom.
Completely. So they've got to be so careful. I think over time, there'll be so many more Star Wars TV shows and so many more Star Wars TV, or Star Wars movies rather, and whatever other media is coming down the pike. It's just the nature of it. There's just so much more to come. And now they've got to get it out there quicker, because Galaxy's Edge, once that's up and running again normally, that'll be fine. And they'll keep refreshing it and changing it. And all the other things that are coming, all the computer games and everything else, all the other stuff, it'll all bobble along quite nicely. But they do need to keep it in the zeitgeist beyond people all knowing what May the Force Be With You means and doing Yoda impressions, or in my case, bad Wookiee roars. You know, you've got to keep it relevant and right up there, because like you said a minute ago, you know, there's that many other franchises now. It's not like kids haven't got somewhere else to turn. If Star Wars I've seen it on social media very recently, you know, you can see people are now, they're all starting to talk about other franchises and other films and other TV shows. Easily get your head turned these days if you take your eye off Star Wars for a minute and think, oh, that didn't do it for me. We've had it in the past, you know, there were Star Wars films that came out that some lit us up more than others. Nowadays, it kind of feels like people, if they don't quite get what they dreamed or wanted, it's very easy to go, I'm going back to Marvel, I'm going to follow what's happening at DC, I'm going to, you know, whatever it might be. So Star Wars really needs to be sharp, stay sharp at the moment. Quality's the key.
Hey man, it's me, Kevin Smith, Star Wars fan, Fantha Tracks fan.
So, on the site, we have been running a competition for UK readers to win a Scentsy Buddy Baby Yoda, and we picked a winner from our entrants, and the winner is Matt Schwartz. Matt, you will be receiving the Scentsy Buddy Baby Yoda through the post very soon. We'll drop you a line, let you know you've won, and many congratulations.
Hi, this is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
So for those who collect the Black Series figures, they announced some more figures coming for the Black Series line on Friday. So these figures, there's a series of 6 figures, all from the final season of the Clone Wars. Mark, did you post an article about this?
I did. Got it up as quick as we possibly could. Yeah, some really nice stuff. There's 4 6-inch Black Series figures that are coming out in the new packaging as well, which looks really nice. There's the 332nd Legion Clone Trooper, which is with the orange Ahsoka helmet deco on it, which looks really cool. There's a new Ahsoka as well with better deco on it as well, which looks phenomenal. The character they call the Mandalorian, it's the Super Commando, the Mandalorian Super Commando, and then there's a Mandalorian Loyalist, which is basically in the same armour as Bo-Katan. So yeah, really, really nice. I know that some of the guys on the site got busy on Friday ordering, because I think they were available to pre-order, and from what I heard, they sold out like that. They were flying out the doors. So I think they're US exclusives. I could be wrong, but I think they are US exclusives in certain places, but some made their way to this side of the pond. But these are gorgeous figures.
They do look good, don't they? And the packaging, the more I see this 6-inch Black Series packaging refresh, the more I'm just like, oh, should I start collecting Black Series? Should I start going down the dark path on that one? Won't moan too much about the fact that there's not any figures on the vintage line again, but hey, I'm sure some will come eventually.
Fingers crossed. There's lots of rumours and talk about more sort of vintage stuff and like what the next HasLab thing will be. I mean, they've just announced the big Marvel Sentinel, HasLab Sentinel, which is, I mean, I don't collect Marvel figures at all, and I could spend £300 on other better things, but I've got to be honest, that Sentinel looks phenomenal. Yeah, there's more stuff to come. But these, you're right, the repack looks so nice, you know, as a display box, and the figures are gorgeous. The detail and quality is just getting better and better and better on the 6-inch, which was a line I wasn't that interested in. I pick up odds and sods, you know, if they do a convention exclusive or they do a few carbonised figures or whatever it may be, you know, I'll pick a few up. But I actually looked the other day and I've got about 40 Black Series figures. I was like, I don't even remember getting half of them. It's not something I focus on, but they sort of work their way in. And saying that, I have actually got the 40th anniversary Forlom and Zucker set, which came through, so which is really nice, because I got the 3 3/4 set way back at, I forget which celebration it was Celebration 5 or 6 that they did years ago, so it complements that really nicely. But good job, Hasbro, and obviously as we get more news, we'll post it on the site and on the socials, and stay abreast of it on Fantha Tracks.
So that's all we've got time for in episode 46. Mark, how can people get in touch?
People can get in touch. If you want to be part of the action, stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news, you can visit Fantha Tracks or check out Fantha Tracks app, which you can get through the App Store, or follow us on your mobile device, which is the best way to do it. You can reach out to us and send in your listeners' questions by emailing radio@fanthatracks.com. So do what Alan did today. Send us a question. We'll chew it over and throw it around. And some of it will make sense and some of it won't, but we'll certainly do our best. Comment, like and share on any of our social media feeds at Fantha Tracks, and be sure to subscribe, leave a review. Again, 5-star review please, and if you leave us a review we will give you a shout out, and that can be on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcatcher or smart speaker of choice. Yes, it's been fun again. We've had a lot to talk about today.
We have. It's been good. And I think we're going to be talking again later on as well.
We certainly are, yeah. We're gathering more content for Empire 40, which we will be talking to Dave and Simon from the show very, very shortly on the next couple of episodes. So stay tuned for all the latest news, all the latest nonsense. We've got loads of nonsense, and we'll see you next episode.
Bye-bye.
Coming up next on Fantha Tracks Radio, it's the Fantha from Down Under.